Many of the most dangerous influences in our lives don't come from those we openly mistrust, but from those we consider close, friends, family, or partners, who are unconscious of their own inner darkness. Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist, warned of the shadow, the parts of ourselves we repress, deny, or simply fail to acknowledge. When left unexamined, these shadow aspects can leak out through our behaviors, often disguised under the masks of kindness, morality, or emotional need. The real danger lies not in overt malice, but in unconsciousness. When people are unaware of their inner conflicts, they act them out through others. What feels like love, concern, or care can often be manipulation in disguise, driven by a need to control or avoid one's own pain. There are certain behavioral patterns, often rooted in unresolved trauma or deep psychological splits, that Jung would describe as shadow projections. These behaviors are not just personally destructive, they distort the emotional fabric of our relationships. When we look closely, we can see repeating patterns, types of people who act out their unconscious material in ways that harm others without even realizing it. These are not villains in a story, but human beings entangled in their own psychological wounding. Yet, recognizing these patterns is crucial for emotional clarity and spiritual growth. One such pattern is what might be called the unconscious manipulator. These individuals are not consciously trying to control or harm others, but they offload their emotional burdens onto those around them. Instead of owning their pain, sadness, or frustration, they make others feel responsible for fixing or soothing them. They often appear emotionally needy or fragile, and without realizing it, they guilt others into caregiving roles. The unconscious manipulator doesn't ask for help directly. Rather, they create emotional scenarios where others feel obligated to rescue them. The cost of this dynamic is subtle but profound. It drains emotional energy, confuses boundaries, and fosters silent resentment. Another deeply ingrained pattern is found in those who become overly identified with their persona, the social mask they wear. These individuals invest heavily in being perceived a certain way. They may appear polished, helpful, moral, or successful, but their interactions often feel hollow or performative. Beneath their carefully crafted image lies a fragile self that they are afraid to expose. Because they prioritize appearances over authenticity, they demand perfection from others as well. This creates a climate of pressure and judgment, where emotional honesty is discouraged. The persona bearer unconsciously teaches those around them that it's not okay to be messy, vulnerable, or flawed, because they cannot tolerate those things in themselves. Then there are those who have buried their own shadow so deeply that it festers inside. They are the ones who seem calm and composed until they suddenly erupt. These individuals are often emotionally repressive, not allowing themselves to feel anger, envy, or grief. But emotions that are denied do not disappear. They build up in the unconscious and eventually explode. Their reactions to small triggers can be disproportionate and confusing, both for themselves and for others. This emotional volatility is not about the present moment. It's the accumulated expression of everything they've refused to face. They lash out, then retreat into shame, perpetuating a cycle of repression and explosion that damages trust and intimacy. In some people, the shadow takes the form of moral superiority. These individuals become controllers through ethics and righteousness. They project their own disowned impulses, anger, selfishness, desire, onto others and then condemn them for it. Often, they will use guilt as a weapon, making others feel wrong, bad, or unworthy for behaviors they themselves cannot accept within. This is the moral controller, someone who believes they are guided by virtue, but in truth, they are trying to escape their own inner conflict. Their judgments are less about truth and more about the need to keep their own shadow out of sight. This dynamic is especially painful in relationships, where love becomes conditional, and approval is offered only when the other person conforms to their rigid code of conduct. Another dangerous behavior arises from unresolved complexes, emotional knots formed in early life that remain active in the unconscious. People who are complexed often react to the present as though it were the past. A small misunderstanding can trigger a tidal wave of fear, abandonment, or rage. They are not responding to you, they are reliving something else. These reactions are unpredictable and confusing, often leading to emotional instability. Because the person is unaware of the original wound, they misplace their feelings and make others responsible for soothing them. The result is a relationship built not on presence and reality, but on reactivity and distortion. Finally, there is the psychic vampire, a term used to describe individuals who unconsciously feed on the energy of others. These people may not intend to harm, but they require constant attention, reassurance, or emotional caretaking. They are deeply uncomfortable being alone with their own feelings and depend on others to fill the void. Their neediness dissolves the healthy boundaries between self and other. At first, they may seem vulnerable or charming, but over time, being around them feels draining. They consume the emotional resources of others without offering nourishment in return. This dynamic becomes a one-way flow of energy, where the other person slowly loses their sense of autonomy and vitality. Each of these behavioral patterns emerges from an unconscious attempt to avoid pain. No one sets out to become manipulative, controlling, or draining. These are survival strategies, ways of dealing with internal conflict, shame, or fear, but when left unexamined, they become destructive. They distort relationships, sabotage intimacy, and block authentic connection. What makes them truly dangerous is not their intensity, but their invisibility. Because these behaviors are unconscious, they feel justified, normal, even loving. The person acting them out often sees themselves as the victim, never realizing how much they are unconsciously controlling or hurting others. The path forward is not about labeling or blaming, but about self-awareness. The video's ultimate message is a call to look inward. We must ask ourselves difficult questions. Where am I projecting my pain? In what ways do I manipulate, judge, or drain others without realizing it? Which emotional reactions belong to the present moment, and which are echoes from the past? Self-reflection is not always comfortable, but it is liberating. When we begin to see our own patterns clearly, we create space for healing and transformation. Awakening from the spell of unconscious behavior is not about becoming perfect. It's about becoming honest. When we own our shadow, we stop acting it out. We reclaim our energy, our presence, and our capacity to love without control. The journey inward is not an escape from life, but a return to it.